I recently ran across a very interesting video where Grok 4, the latest artificial intelligence engine by Elon Musk, objectively evaluated the evidence for Christianity to determine whether or not it was rational to consider its claims. Now, it is interesting to note that Musk, a few years ago, was an avowed atheist. He was also an early advocate of artificial intelligence. He claims that Grok 4, his latest AI engine, is built to be objective and unbiased, considering available evidence at its face value. Interestingly, over the past few years, Musk has transitioned from being an atheist to becoming an agnostic and is now at least a deist, if not a theist. I am not suggesting that he has become a Christian. That I do not know. But he now professes the belief that there is indeed a creator God. Let's look at the evidence that brought him to this conclusion. One of the most surprising developments in recent years is that artificial intelligence systems are beginning to take Christian apologetics seriously, not because they possess faith and not because they are spiritual, but because they are designed to evaluate evidence, logic, probability, and explanatory power. Artificial intelligence cannot determine ultimate truth, and it cannot replace personal faith, but it can analyze arguments, evaluate historical evidence, and assess which explanations best fit the known facts. And that is where something unexpected has happened. When AI systems examine questions about the origin of life, the fine-tuning of the universe, even the historical evidence for Jesus, the resurrection, and the reliability of Scripture, they do not simply dismiss Christianity as irrational. One of the major issues involves the origin of life itself. Life contains extraordinarily information complexity. Even the simplest living cell requires staggering amounts of coordinated information. Some statistical analyses suggest that the probability of complex life emerging purely through unguided random processes is astronomically small. Not merely unlikely, but beyond what many scientists consider realistically probable. Some AI analyses have cited probability ranges so extreme they challenge the sufficiency of purely material explanation. Numbers involving probabilities far beyond 1 in 10 to the 18th power, which already exceeds the estimated number of atoms in the observable universe. The universe also appears finely tuned for life. Fundamental physical constants exist within extraordinarily narrow ranges. Even slight variations could make life impossible. This raises an unavoided question. Does this reflect accident or design? AI systems have also analyzed the historical foundations of Christianity. Unlike purely philosophical religions, Christianity is rooted in public historical claims. Jesus existed. He was crucified. His followers claimed he rose from the dead. And the Christian movement expanded rapidly in the very city where these events were said to have occurred. Even the resurrection can be approached historically. The question is not, can miracles happen, but rather, what best explains the evidence? The empty tomb, the transformation of the disciples, the early rise of Christianity, and the willingness of eyewitnesses to suffer and die for their testimony. The New Testament is also supported by extraordinary manuscript tradition. Thousands of ancient manuscripts exist, far more than for most ancient historical works. And archaeology has repeatedly confirmed the people, places, customs, and events that are referenced in Scripture. Now, none of this proves Christianity in a mathematical sense, but it does challenge a common assumption that Christianity is irrational or unsupported by evidence. In fact, when viewed cumulatively, many argue that Christianity provides the most coherent explanation for reality, the existence of the universe, the origin of life, consciousness, morality, meaning, historical evidence, and the person of Jesus Christ. Using an Occam's razor approach, Christianity may actually require fewer assumptions than any other explanation. And this is why the rise of artificial intelligence is so interesting, because this highly advanced reasoning system does not automatically dismiss Christianity. Instead, it recognizes that the arguments for Christianity are far more intellectually serious than modern culture sometimes assumes. So perhaps the real question is not what does AI believe, but rather what worldview best explains the evidence, and am I willing to follow that truth wherever it leads? Let's end with a few final observations. Technology continuously changes. So does artificial intelligence. But the deepest human questions remain. Why are we here? Does life have meaning? Does God exist? And who is Jesus? I hope you enjoyed this bonus video. It further supports the idea that Christianity can be considered not as irrational, but rather as perhaps the most rational explanation of our existence. And it supports a reasoned Christian faith. Thanks for joining me in this interesting look through the lens of artificial intelligence. I hope to see you in our next video.